In this video, I'm going to be explaining what an empirical formula is and how you would be able to solve. So what an empirical formula is a formula with the smallest whole number ratio of the element. So an empirical formula may or may not be the same as the molecular formula. So, for example, a molecular formula would be C2H6, and its empirical formula would be CH3, because 2 can go into 2 once, and 2 can go into 6 3 times, giving it CH3. H2O, on the other hand, is both molecular and empirical because it is at its smallest whole number ratio, which is H2O. H2O2, on the other hand, is only molecular. HO would be the empirical for H2O2 because 2 goes into itself. So when you're wanting to solve for an empirical formula and it already gives you the information that you need to know, this is what you're going to have to do step by step. So first off, you want to make sure you have 100% with all of your things combined. So I have 59.95% oxygen and 40.05% sulfur, giving me 100%. So therefore, that means I have 59.95 grams of oxygen and 40.05. So in able to finish trying to solve the equation, you're going to need to know the molar mass of oxygen and sulfur. And oxygen has a molar mass of 16 grams, and sulfur has a molar mass of So when setting up your problem, you want to have the grams of your element on top of 1 and then have 1 mole over your element's molar mass. So I have 40.05 grams of sulfur over 1 and 1 mole over 32 grams of sulfur. So 40.05 grams of sulfur divided by 32 grams of sulfur gives me. So now I have 59.95 grams of oxygen over 1 and 1 mole over 16 grams of oxygen. So 59.95 grams divided by 16 grams gives me 3.75 moles. So now with this information, you're going to want to divide the two numbers by the smallest number. And in this case, the smallest number is 1.25. So 3.75 divided by 1.25 gives you roughly 3. And 1.25 divided by itself gives you. So now your ratio of sulfur to oxygen is 1 to 3. So your empirical formula would be SO3. So now here is all of my work put together so you can see it all together. So it's just showing that everything what I divided by and how I got my answer, which was SO. So now I have 48.64% of carbon and 8.16% hydrogen and 43.2% oxygen, which gives me 100%. So that means I have 48.64 grams carbon, 8.16 grams hydrogen, 43.2 grams oxygen. And the molar mass of carbon is 12, hydrogen is 1. So I took the previous information and I set it up so I have 48.64 divided by 12, which gives me 4.05, and then I have 8.16 divided by 1, which gives me 8.16, and 43.2 divided by 16 gives me 2.7. So now that 2.7 is my smallest number, I'm going to divide all three numbers by 2.7. So 4.05 divided by 2.7 gives me 1.5. 8.16 divided by 2.7 gives me 3, and 2.7 divided by itself gives me 1. So now that I have 1.5, which is not a whole number, I'm going to want to multiply that number and the rest of my numbers. That way my 1.5 can be a whole number. So 1.5 times 2 gives me 3, which is my closest whole number. So I'm going to multiply all the other numbers by 2, which is 3 times 2 is 6, and 1 times 2 is 2. So now that you know how to solve empirical formulas when the information is given to you, now I'm going to teach you how to solve empirical formulas in word problems. Determine the empirical formula for a compound that contains 35.98% aluminum and 64.02% sulfur. So in this case, I pretty much highlighted or I wrote in a different color what information you need to know in this sentence, which was the 35.98% aluminum and the 64.02% sulfur. Another thing that you need to know is what it's asking you to do, which is determine the empirical formula for the compound. So that's the information you need to know. So the molar mass of aluminum is 27 grams, and the molar mass of sulfur is 32 grams. So if 35.98 grams divided by 27 grams gives me 1.33. And 64.02 grams divided by 32 grams gives me about 2. So since 1.33 is my smallest number, I'm going to divide both of those numbers by 1.33. So 1.33 divided by itself gives me 1, and 2.0 divided by 1.33 gives me about 1.5. So then, since I have 1.5, which is not a whole number, I need to multiply it to give me its closest whole number, which is 3. So I need to multiply 1.5 by 2 to give me 3, and I need to multiply 1 by 2 to give me 2, because I have to do what I did to one number to all the rest. So in this case, I'm not going to give you the information you need just blatantly. I'm going to just leave it so you need to figure out what information you need to know in order to solve for the empirical formula. So the chemical analysis of aspirin indicates that the molecule is 60% carbon, 4.44% hydrogen, and 35.56% oxygen. So determine the So I have 60 grams of carbon divided by 12 grams of carbon, which gives me 5. And 4.44 grams of hydrogen divided by 1 gram gives me 4.44. 35.56 grams of oxygen divided by 16 grams gives me 2.22. Since 2.22 is my smallest number, I'm going to divide everything by 2.22. So 5 divided by 2.22 is 2.25. 4.44 divided by 2.22 gives me 2, and 2.22 divided by itself gives me 1. So since 2.25 is not a whole number, I need to multiply it by 4 to give me its closest whole number, which is 9. So 2.25 times 4 is 9. 2 times 4 gives me 8, and 1 times 4 gives me 4. So just a quick overview of empirical formulas. Empirical formula is a formula with the smallest whole number ratio of the elements, which may or may not be the same as a molecular formula. And some things you need to know when trying to solve for a molecular formula is you need to know that all of the percentages equal up to 100%, or else you're going to have another step to solve for it. And you're going to need to know the molar mass of each element that you have. That way you can set up your equation properly. And then once you set it up, you should divide all your answers by the smallest answer you get. And if you don't get whole numbers for every single one of them, you're going to need to multiply all the numbers by that number to give you a whole number, which should give you your empirical formula.